is ISPR, Inter-Services Public Relations. I think it's a lesser known aspect of the Pakistan military's war machinery. And I'll be discussing the discrete propaganda that is run by them. And the idea behind the discussion is how ISPR shapes the idea of Pakistan, and the conference itself discusses the idea of Pakistan, and it has transgressed a lot from how Jinnah had envisioned it and how and where it has reached now. And I start with this quote that the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller who sets the vision, the values, and the agenda of an entire generation. And although this quote is by Steve Jobs, it's also relevant to the role that ISPR has been playing and the role that it plays in shaping the idea of Pakistan. So ISPR is basically a PR and a media wing of the Pakistan Armed Forces. It was founded in 1949 May under Colonel Shahbaz Khan. Started as a modest press release cell for the armed forces, and now it has evolved into a very sophisticated propaganda and perception management body. And in this presentation, of course, I mentioned it was established in 49, and from 49 to 90s, it did play a very subtle role. Of course, it was very active during the wars, particularly in the Urdu press and media. But then after 1990s, its role started to expand significantly. I have written a paper on this in the Journal of Defense Studies, which is published by MPIDSA, and I've given some data on how the budget of the army had expanded, and it also went into ISPR, but I'll not get into the numbers here. Originally aimed at disseminating military news, ISPR now covers very broad social, political, economic issues as well. And when I talk about ISPR's publications and print media, I'll discuss that. Of course, ICT, information communication technology, had played a very important role in revolutionizing the mandate of ISPR in 1990s and thereafter. And overall, it shapes the public perception internally. And of course, it also works along with ISI as far as the psychops are concerned. Talking about the organizational structure, generally it is headed by a three-star general and major general. Currently, it is under Major General Sharif Chaudhry, who's now a Lieutenant General. The DGISPR reports to the Army Chief, and it comes under a Joint Chief of Staff Secretariat for organizational purposes. It does collaborate with ISI for promoting the int-based narrative management, and that's why I feel when we talk about the idea of Pakistan, and a lot of scholars in this panel itself have also discussed about ISI, the role that organizations play there. And I think the previous speaker had also mentioned rightly that Pak Army is not just an army, it's a think tank, it's a spy organization, and there are a lot of subsidiary organizations which work within the ambit of the army, to promote this goal. So talking about ISPR strategic objectives in propaganda, see, I feel we can look at it as a soft power body of the Pak Armed Forces. It does target the hearts and minds of the Pakistani people. And of course, it does play a complementary role in ISI, not obviously in terms of the physical or the ground operations, but in information operations and 5G wars, 5G war or the hybrid and non-kinetic war that the chair had also mentioned in the beginning. Internal legitimacy is a very important goal because there is a constant civil-military tussle, as has also been addressed by the previous speaker. And in that sense, the publications of ISPR, its attempts to control the narrative of electronic media and print media has been very important. Cyber warfare, particularly after 90s and now after 2012, and I'll talk about the leadership change in ISPR. So they have been conducting very active cyber ops against India. ISPR, just like Pakistan Army, is very India-centric, Ashish sir rightly mentioned. The obsession with India that they have also reflects in this organization. They've also been trying to undermine India's international standing and reputation through targeted propaganda, and a lot of times, in fact, some of you, if you're following this morning in New York, this photo has been going viral that how there are trucks and vehicles going around in the New York City carrying photos of how Kashmir needs to be freed of India. So, of course, the embassy there coordinates it, but the ideas are flowing from ISPR because it essentially deals with ideas. Public perception management, of course, shaping public opinion in favor of the army and the military policies, and the control of the flow of information. So the idea of Pakistan, when they're trying to shape, has been done over a period of time, very subconsciously in a very organic manner. You cannot, convince the public to think. And as has been mentioned, there are a lot of events that have happened, the change of leadership, and it got very heated when Imran Khan got into a tussle with the army. Initially, he was in favor, and then he fell apart. So if you observe the ISPR website, if you follow the literature that they release every month and also on their website, it works very closely with how the army thinks. And across the events, you will see how they try to manage that. Now, talking about the media evolution of ISPR, see, post 1990, the military enhanced ISPR's budget, and it was in tandem with the budget that was for the army. It was also the era when Nawaz Sharif was there, followed by Bhutto, and then again Nawaz Sharif, and then the military coup brought General Musharraf. And it was during this decade that there was a focus on information technology revolution as such, and how the same changes can also be imbibed within the army. So in that sense, ISPR started to change, and that reflected in the kind of dramas, the serials, the documentaries that they had started to produce. And I'll show some photos in subsequent slides. So in order to create a positive narrative to shape the public opinion, they aimed at mass influence weapons. And that also meant running, not just the documentaries, but also getting some kind of control over the print media, the editorials that are published in the major English newspapers and not just Urdu newspapers, also FM and the radio. Initial focus was on family dramas, and if you go through some of them, a lot of them are available on YouTube. They have evolved now towards very sophisticated documentaries and songs, which focus on the youth, which have a youth appeal. And of course, varied content that I will discuss. See, this is what the ISPR website looks like now. So they have documentaries, they have dramas, they have songs, they also have mobile games. Because now, essentially, they are looking at targeting. They also have a souvenir shop from where you can get these souvenirs. And these are some photos. The Karakoram Highway here and Pakistan Army Legacy of Peacekeeping, both on the right, are documentaries that they've, very good in terms of cinematography, appeal to the youngsters. And of course, then they have their own Spotify channel and they create these songs. Every time there's something major that happens with India, they leave no opportunity and they create very popular content. So since 1990s, 1992 particularly, they have engaged in various media forms to promote a specific image, a very pro-military image. Some of the dramas that I mentioned that are popular at that time, Khajur Mein Atka Sunehre Din, they have a very family-oriented appeal, but very subconsciously they discuss the life in army, the sacrifices they make, and how army's interests are essentially linked with national interests. They have an Islamic appeal, but like Ashish sir said, really in case of Pakistan, the institutional. So the idea is to create an idea of supremacy of army in Pakistan. And then, of course, there were some dramas that I'll show you came about in 2012 and 14. But then in 2019, one of the most famous channels in Pakistan, Hum TV, created this series called Ae Wafa. Again, very popular actors. It was a very high budget serial. And then that was seen as a kind of a resurgence of, popular youths. And all of these, like I said, are available on YouTube. So documentaries and songs are obviously there, and the central idea is always to portray army in a very glorified manner. And see, this one was there in 2007. All our ISPR productions produced by ISPR, funded by ISPR, available on PTV. Again, another one, Sipahi, and they're quite famous one, but you will see a shift. 2019 onwards, the kind of cinematography they've used has changed, obviously much more well budgeted. 2016, this one again was based on the life of a female fighter, Air Force fighter. And then this is the one I was talking about in 2019. And 2021, again, this one, which talks about the life of female officers in the Pakistan Army. And it very interestingly shows how these women, are compliant to Islam. They are also devoted women, and at the same time, they are working for the country. So again, the idea was to promote all these ideas together. And this one particularly was on the 1971 war. And what they've tried to show is the West Pakistan, former West Pakistan's narrative on how India had manipulated the elements in East Pakistan. So essentially, we know 1971 war led to creation of Bangladesh out of East Pakistan, but they've tried their best to portray an alternate side of particularly the Pakistani perception of 71 war. Now, likewise, ISPR also has a lot of FN, radio channels, which have been a big source of controversy. They don't have proper authorization in terms of papers, but of course, they cannot be running without, the knowledge of me, the top bosses. And most of the programs, again, are ISPR backed songs, the documentaries that they produce, and of course, like the previous speaker and others have talked, the commercial interests. So all the advertisements are for G Foundation or Bharia Foundation. So again, it's another. Now, this question was raised by Asma Jangir, that how many within Pakistan civil society who have been questioning that how ISPR is suppressing critical journalism, how they frame any form of dissent as anti-national. And one example is this renowned journalist, Amir Mateen, who was actually fired because he questioned ISPR's role and intervention in print media. And we had basically called out how ISPR controls and forces and harasses journalists. Also, and more particularly when it comes to coverage of what is happening in Balochistan or in KP. So all of those issues, they are controlled, not just in ISPR or their publications, but also in other well-known newspapers like the News International. Dawn is still believed to have a moderate policy. Some of their editorials may appear to be slightly critical, but then by and large, there is very little scope of dissent. So print media since 1948, Hilal has been the official publication of Pakistan Armed Forces, and it covers a wide range of subjects. Initially, it was very military-centric, but now it does cover politics, it covers foreign policy, it now covers contemporary issues like climate change as well, reflecting the military's impact on domestic narratives. And say one interesting point is they generally look for non-Pakistani Anglo-Saxon scholars, Americans, American Pakistanis, British Pakistanis to write for them because it gives them a sense of validity, of legitimacy or validation to what they're saying. And just to give you a glimpse, this is from their latest edition. And this is what it looks like. They have a version in Urdu, they have one in English, they have Hilal Her for women, they have for kids. And then they have a blog section as well where youngsters can also write, and they have special reports. So they cover everything. And these are some glimpses from the editorials that they've been publishing over the last 1 year. Kashmir, RSS. Again, women-centric to appeal to women, climate catastrophe. And again, they'll always show our army comes forward, even in disaster situations, to help. Now, this is from the Hilal Kids magazine. And again, very media, very military-centric discourse. The language is mellowed down to appeal to youngsters. See, Defense and Marty's Day, a teenager's view, so they do attract blog writings from youngsters as well. Again, India and Israel, 71 war, 65 war, and these are very recent. So they make it a point that most of their coverages, keep army, and of course, there are a lot of, which are very Islam-centric as well. So the central agenda is very clear. So just like I said, content analysis, focus centrally on military activities. They do cover political developments, and most interesting, you can see how they were covering when there were protests before Shahbaz Sharif took over, when Imran Khan was there, and the shift was very interesting over months. India-centric, as expected, connection between military and society. They try to build a very positive connection between the military and society, trying to show that both are symbiotic and how military serves the interests of the larger public and aligning civilian discourse with military narratives. I'll quickly touch upon the internship program, the youth, because there are a lot of youngsters, I think, who have joined here also. And similarly, young graduates in Pakistan get absorbed by ISPR as interns. Some of them are paid, the young ones are not. But then it gives them an opportunity to work very close with the establishment. So a lot of their activities are again, from what is being documented, cyber propaganda, particularly against India. Programs details are generally shared through informal channels, but a lot of these interns are very active on LinkedIn. Recruitment process is very opaque. And again, working on military narratives. See, from what I have personally studied for a period of 6 months when I was publishing this paper, most of their interns were from National Defense University, which is in Islamabad. And they do take a lot of interns, female interns from Fatima Jinnah Women University as well, which is in Pindi. And I'll show you one interesting advertisement that they put in Fatima Jinnah Women University's placement cell. So nobody really knows how they recruit because up until 2018, there was no open recruitment. It was only in 18 and 19 that an open advertisement was put, a call for interns. And the first documented proof is a 2012 batch intern at ISPR who had put this blog, very detailed one, on his internship. And in fact, the same year when I was in Pakistan, that was the time I got to know that ISPR runs any such program, because in popular perception and popular discourse, we only hear about ISI, not ISPR. But then we got to know because some of those interns were also attending the conference. Now, as far as honey trapping is concerned, every time we discuss espionage, obviously we only talk about ISI, but I think that is where we're missing the point because ISPR is, of course, playing a very important role in honey trapping. They recruit a lot of youngsters who have the right skill set. They train individuals to pose as women. There is an interconnection between ISPR and intelligence, like I mentioned, but of course, complementary role in information ops. And of course, they pose a very important tactical threat to India's security. And until we start looking at ISPR in detail, I think our knowledge or our focus on ISPR in the academic community, and because they are young researchers here, they should start looking at ISPR as well, follow their activities and the literature that they publish. And this is the advertisement that I was talking about. On the website of Fatima Jinnah University 2019, they're looking for a social media specialist, female only, military owned media house, obviously is ISPR. And the work they've highlighted to attract and to interact with targeted virtual communities and network users. So it was, almost, reading between the lines and pretty obvious that what they're looking for and the skill set that they've highlighted. Likewise, they do it through a lot of college placement cells. Also, ISPR recruits youngsters through professors who have worked with ISPR and now are are working now in universities. Turning point in organizational leadership was 2012, and like the previous speaker also mentioned, there was also a period in Pakistan Army and Armed Forces time when they had to do some image damage control, of their image. And now Osama bin Laden had been caught. Pakistan military was being questioned everywhere, including internally. And General Asim Bajwa, that time Major General, he was the DG ISPR, and he was also known as the Army's media czar. And he decided that, media needs to play a very important role in rebuilding the image of the army. And it was this time that even ISPR's publications, ISPR's website, ISPR's dramas and documentaries underwent a major shift. And likewise, under the next DG, Major General Asif Ghafoor at that time, he pushed for the youth internship program, very open photography and promotion of the internship program. And now you're at a point, if you just Google ISPR internship program, you will see the latest program is running, when it's ending, and when the next one is starting. So there's no secrecy about it anymore. And I'll just conclude by saying that, like Chair General Kocher, in the beginning spoke about hybrid and non-kinetic warfare, and we talk about 5G warfare. It is very important that besides discussing the Pakistan military capabilities and ISI, we also focus on ISPR because anti-state propaganda, the role of social media in indoctrinating youngsters and indoctrinating masses in general is very important in this era. So ISPR, like I said, Ghafoor had emphasized on strategic communication, and they're doing it in a very structured way. It's not very abstract, it's very structured. However, we do have limited information on it. The public perception is very strong. There are elements who are critical, but then by and large, they're trying. I mean, if you look at the literature and their control over the media, they're very proactively trying to change it. They also focus on contemporary conflicts, their idea of jihad, what is happening in Afghanistan, Af-Pak border. All their publications give a very interesting glimpse into how subconsciously they try to target. And social media, of course, is very important. So the idea of Pakistan, I conclude, not just ISI, not just Pak Army, we also, youngsters who are here today, also can look at ISPR. And I'll be happy to take any questions or comments in the Q&A session.